Okay, got it. Let's begin with what did you want to become career-wise when you were a child? Did you always want to work as a licensed clinical social worker?
No. Originally I wanted to be a plastic surgeon. So that was
Love that.
my goal probably in like elementary, middle school. And then I started to realize how much school that was gonna be and how much work med school would be. And when I got to college, I was like, I don't want to go into medicine. And so I was like, oh, I'll go into like criminal justice because I really am interested in like forensics and things like that. So I was like, okay, I want to like do something with forensics, crime scene investigation, stuff like that. And then I was like, no, I don't want to do that either. So eventually, like naturally, social work and criminal justice is always kind of linked in some way. Like, a lot of times they have social workers going out to crime scenes and things like that. So I was like, maybe I'll go into social work. And I actually had a mentor who was a social worker as well. And she just really seemed to love it and enjoy it. So I was like, I'll do that too.
I absolutely love that. And you're right. Like, in order to become a surgeon in general, that's literally like a decade of your life. So I
Yeah.
completely understand that. But I love the fact that although you did your research before you hopped into the situation and we're in too deep with the situation, I love the fact that you did your research and at the same time, quite naturally, you still found a passion for a field that you're currently in. I think with people who want to work in corporate America or develop careers, they think that their plan A is the only plan that's possible. Like it's okay to sometimes the journey is better than the destination, so to
Well,
speak.
I feel like most of the times your plan isn't going to go how you think it is. You can map out anything, but there's always going to be some fork in the road, and you choose one way or another. But ultimately, I feel like I landed where I was supposed to.
That part. Love that. What are your primary responsibilities and duties as a licensed clinical social worker?
Well, with my license, I oversee the housing programs at a nonprofit. Um, my primary duties are really more so administrative than more so the clinical part. So ensuring that the programs are running, the funding is running, making sure I'm making the connections within the community, but then also making sure that if there is any sort of crisis, because we do work with individuals who are chronically homeless with mental health,
Mhm.
substance use, that I'm able to intervene there. Also with housing, a little bit of my role goes into disability assessments because I am one of the only licensed people at the agency. So being able to provide disability assessments to ease a client's transition into housing. I oversee four four separate programs, and then they all have like their sub programs, and then so it's a lot more administrative than the clinical part.
Absolutely love that. I love how like multi-dimensional like your pathway is as a licensed clinical social worker because not only do you work with clients like psychologically and mentally, you're also the brains behind the programming and the system and the protocol. So it's not just a fixed
Yeah,
position, it's flexible. You can do multiple positions at once while still focusing on the nucleus of
yeah.
your role. I love that.
Social work, I think overall is one of the most flexible professions out there where you can touch on any area like bottom up.
Definitely. I think that social work, there's a misconception with social work. However, people fail to realize that everyone is you pushed out. When you're dealing with people, you have to communicate, you have to socialize, you have to reiterate and verbalize things. So there's so many different, from what I'm picking up, there's so many different avenues that you can do as a social worker besides case management. I think that's the general concept that people think of when they think of social work. Oh, case manager, but there's so many different concepts and roles and responsibilities. I love that. So, what work advice would you give towards someone wanting to become a licensed clinical social worker? Like, where could they kind of get their foot in the door at?
I would say definitely starting out by doing your research. So going into any field that requires like an advanced degree, you want to be sure because we all know like a lot of times it's not free, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing pretty thorough research on what it is and really kind of connecting to where you want to be. So like I said,
That
social
part.
all these different dimensions. So do you want to work with children? Okay, what pathway do I need to work with children? Do I want to work medically? Okay, what skills do I need to do to work medically? Do I want to go into nonprofit? What does that look like? Because they're all going to be slightly different. They do have a lot of really good resources, magazines, articles, websites, and professional networks that you can look into prior to making that full decision to jump into going like and being a full-blown social worker. Also, social work is probably one of the only fields where you can pretty much be a social worker without having the degree, right? So you want to probably start by trying out a case management job to see if it fits for you, to see if this is something you want to move forward with. You know, it's kind of like a tester or a tease, like, do I even want to work with people? You have that opportunity in the social work.
Love that. You definitely have so many avenues and opportunities that you can research. And with that being said, it kind of sounds like if it's for you, it's definitely for you. You'll find a niche or a program that works for you. It isn't, as we discussed before, it isn't fixed. Like, for example, a line cook. A line cook, speaking from personal experience, is pretty much a fixed, you know what you're in, but it's very like one dimensional. I love how multidimensional your career field and your license field is. Hmm.
Yeah. Just finding something that aligns with like your goals and objectives. Like I think inherently people know themselves the best, especially when you're at the point in your life where you're thinking about going to get a master's or something like that. Really sitting with yourself and saying, okay, why do I want to do this? Or what is it that I want to do? Because like an example is for me, I know 100% that working with children would be a difficult population for me to serve. So I wouldn't necessarily want to start putting in a lot of time and effort into getting certified to working with like children and play therapy and things like that because I know myself and I know who I'm here to serve.
I love that. With that being said, what skills and experience have you developed working in your career field?
Um, so some skills and experience. When I came into the social work field, I had absolutely no experience. I actually did the exact opposite of my suggestion with everybody and looked into it. So when I first started in social work, I started in substance use, so in a hospital, doing outpatient group therapy. And it was such an interesting experience that I was like, okay, this is good. I like substance use. It's fun. The outpatient groups are pretty intense. It was like 4 hour groups. So I got my feet wet at that. Then I transitioned over into homeless services initially. So that was, I started that in North Carolina, where I was working on the continuum of
So
care. Yeah, I was working on the continuum of care, and that's really when I started working with individuals experiencing homelessness. And since then, that has been my population. fear. I haven't professionally done a lot of different trainings because I am still like I'm still baby licensure, so I'm only two
Mhm.
years into my license. So right now I am doing my uh CEUs for my renewal. But some things that I definitely want to look into
Mhm.
are is getting like specialized in different types of therapies. So EMDR is one that for some reason has been on my radar. And it helps working with people who experience like post-traumatic stress disorder. And we come into contact with a lot of clients who have PTSD. It's always co-occurring. It seems to be coming up more and more rapidly in the field. So that's something I'm definitely looking into.
That's awesome. I love the fact that you had to learn through personal experience to develop that experience. And I think that, well, I know that people who want to work in your field definitely need people like you. I'm huge on each one, teach one, because it just makes it easier for that degree field, that social field, that career field in general. And the first field that came into mind when you said you wanted to work with those with PTSD, would you ever work as a licensed mental health therapist?
Yes. However, I believe that when you transition over into therapy, it's something to me it's a lot heavier because now you're dealing with people one on one. And you're caring for their mental health, and I want to make sure that I am at my best when I do transition over into providing therapy. I've had a lot of people tell me about bad experiences that they've had in therapy, and I don't ever want to be that person. So I think, I mean, that's one thing that I feel like maybe a little bit of fear is like, I'm like, oh no, that's a lot of responsibility. But I do plan on transitioning to at least doing some part-time therapy. I have done it before. I've had like 4 or 5 therapy clients, but it was only for about 6 months. And it was a good experience overall. Like we remained connected, but I feel like it's a huge investment.
I totally understand working with those who have such intense trauma in general. You definitely, from what I'm picking up from what you're putting down, is you definitely need to develop that emotional resilience and have an extremely strong self-concept because from what I'm picking up again is that you have to create that boundary between your personal concept and your professional concept and the clients because you can't like break down in front of clients and like trauma bond in a way. So I totally understand what you mean. And I love the fact that the clients that you deal with, in a way, you're still developing that experience, that boundary, that concept, because our homeless population, they deal with a lot of trauma and stress as well.
I
I
get to
love that.
therapy goes into so much of a deeper level. It's like I picture people as almost like an egg, right? And I want to be sure as the carrier of that egg that I'm fully prepared and equipped with everything necessary to provide the best support to protect that egg or the best support to help that egg turn into a chicken, something like that.
That part.
And that's
I
why
love
I
that.
feel like when people jump straight into therapy, it can be
Mhm.
good to get conditioned for it, but I feel like it's so much more of a fragile, intentional process that it has to be handled with a lot more care.
That part. That makes perfect sense. What's your favorite part of being a licensed clinical social worker?
Being able to help people with ease. So one thing that getting my license kind of helped me do is just understand people on a whole nother level where I can see someone struggling with this and I'm able to kind of go in and I'm kind of able to pinpoint a little bit better about what's going on with this person and how to use and crisis intervention. And it just helps build my tool belt overall. But honestly, just being able to make sure our clients have access to me, a licensed clinical social worker, to make sure that they don't endure any kind of like stalls in their process. A lot of people aren't connected to mental health, but being required to be connected to mental health before you can get housing is kind of like a catch-22 for a lot of people.
Literally,
So I
you're
like,
able to develop experience with all walks of life. So you'll be able to help and assist all walks of life because you have to be able to have conversations and to relate and to make them comfortable and to make yourself comfortable as well. Like you have to be on point. You have
and
to be able to understand in a way intuitively, like triggers, what you should say, what you shouldn't say, because it's based in real time. So I totally understand what you mean. And also, you'll be able to develop real life experience outside of this when you're able to communicate and bond with all walks of life. I totally get it. I love that. Is there opportunity for upward mobility with being a licensed clinical social worker with that licensure?
there is upward mobility depending on like where you are in your career, but you can always go and add more certifications behind your name, or you can move on and get your doctorate. But having your license is probably one of the more critical aspect of being a social worker. It's like, okay, like, yeah, if you have your master's, that's great, but people are always looking for people who already have that license.
Mhm.
Is you are responsible for yourself, right? So you don't have to be supervised under anybody, you can work pretty independently.
That part. I love how self-contained the position is. I love the knowledge that you instilled within me, within this interview. I love the fact that someone who might not be as aware as you are, they can learn because you drop so many crucial, life-changing gems that people can prepare themselves with and better this career field, better this workforce. I absolutely love that. This was an awesome interview. Thank you so much, Brittany.
Thank you. Let me know if there's anything else you need, okay?